Liverpool handed unexpected boost for Marc Guehi as Crystal Palace face transfer decision. Liverpool are in talks with Crystal Palace over a deal for Marc Guehi. Liverpool's hopes of landing Marc Guehi could be boosted by Arsenal defender Jakub Kiwior potentially joining Crystal Palace. The Reds opened negotiations with the Eagles over a deal for the England international, who has 12 months remaining on his current contract, earlier this month. But despite a keen interest in the central defender, talks between Liverpool and Crystal Palace have yet to break through. After the Community Shield tie between the two sides earlier this month, Palace chairman Steve Parish insisted Guehi's future needed sorting out one way or another before the transfer window closes on September 1st. However, on Wednesday night, it seemed as though Liverpool could be handed an inadvertent boost in their pursuit of Guehi, with Arsenal reportedly considering offering defender Kiwior to Palace as part of a deal to sign Eberechi Eze. The Gunners, though, are reportedly hopeful of snaring the England international away from their North London rivals, and the Independent claims they could use Kiwior to sweeten the deal for Palace. If Palace were to receive the Poland international as part of a deal, it begs the question as to whether they would lower their asking price for Guehi. Newcastle and Tottenham have previously had bids rejected for the 25-year-old, while Barcelona and Juventus were credited with an interest in the defender earlier this week. Newcastle respond after Isak broke silence with bombshell statement. Newcastle United now have no intention of allowing Alexander Isak to leave in light of a bombshell statement in which he accused the club of broken promises. The club have pursued alternatives all summer, and had they signed one of their top targets, they would have explored Isak's sale to Liverpool, recognizing his desire to move on. However, the message from the top tonight is that Isak will be told he is staying at the club. The hierarchy believe that they have now been left with no choice but to stand firm after the striker released his inflammatory statement. As recently as this weekend, they were still trying to bring in two strikers that would have allowed them to consider a renewed approach from Liverpool, having previously missed out on the likes of Joao Pedro, Liam Delap, Hugo Ekitike, or Benjamin Sesko. But signing one, let alone two, has proven difficult, and the growing likelihood was that Isak would have to stay on Tyneside, despite his insistence on never playing for the club again. The 25-year-old broke his silence on his strike on Tuesday night, saying trust has been lost and that a change was best for all parties. Alexander Isak has hit out at Newcastle in a bombshell statement on social media. Daily Mail Sport revealed last month that Isak and his camp were furious last summer when new sporting director Paul Mitchell told them he would not be getting a new contract. Previous co-owner Amanda Staveley had discussed improved terms with them in the spring, believing he was worth and due a pay rise. That led to a feeling of resentment, and Isak's mind was made up that he wanted to move on, informing the club at the end of last season of his intention to leave. However, Newcastle have tried and so far failed to find a replacement. Sources close to the situation believe this has triggered the release of a statement in which Isak says there is no way back. "I've kept quiet for a long time while others have spoken," he wrote on his Instagram account. That silence has allowed people to push their own version of events, even though they know it doesn't reflect what was really said and agreed behind closed doors. The reality is that promises were made, and the club has known my position for a long time. To now act as if these issues are only emerging is misleading. When promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. That's where things are for me right now, and why change is in the best interests of everyone, not just myself. Liverpool's move for Marc Guehi hangs in the balance as desperate claim made. Liverpool have long been linked with a move for Marc Guehi, but at the moment, it feels like things have come to a halt. Over the last month or so, several players have been linked with a potential Anfield switch, and while Guehi's name seems to be popping up regularly, Liverpool have decided against making any further moves. Indeed, Giovanni Leoni has just been brought in to provide some further backup, but since he's only 18 years old, it's unknown whether he'd be able to handle the Premier League just yet. However, after the performance that Ibrahima Konate put in during Liverpool's 4-2 win against Bournemouth, it's clear that he needs some regular competition to keep him at the top of his game. Liverpool are not desperate to bring Marc Guehi in this summer. Now that Liverpool have 4 center backs among their ranks, They have plenty of cover ahead of the 2025-26 season. If the Reds didn't manage to prize Lione away from the Serie A this summer, they'd be in a whole lot of trouble and would have likely been held to ransom by Crystal Palace. Now that they're in a stronger negotiating position, and Guehi only has a year left on his current deal, Arne Slot can wait until a free transfer can be agreed upon. Better yet, a discounted rate for his transfer this summer. And while speaking live on TalkSport, journalist Alex Crook shared an update on the future of the Englishman. Liverpool are not desperate to do this deal for Marc Guehi. I think they'll only do it if the price is right, Crook said. So at the moment, I would probably edge towards Guehi staying. Can Liverpool manage without signing Marc Guehi this season? As mentioned on paper, now that Liverpool have 4 senior center-backs among their ranks, you'd think that they'd have plenty of cover. However, when the injury history of Joe Gomez is taken into account, they only really have 3, as the former Charlton man cannot be relied upon each week. Indeed, when he's fit, he's arguably one of the best center-backs in the Premier League. But since being fully fit seems to be a rare occurrence for Gomez these days, it's hard to rely on him to be a reliable backup. In addition to his injury history, the fact that he's also likely to be used at cover for both fullback positions, this term means that he may not be able to be used at center-back if and when needed. Of course, the Reds have other options among their ranks, but since Slot knows that Gomez can hold his own, he'd likely be the first to be called upon. These are all just ifs, buts, and maybes at the moment, but with the way that things have panned out thus far, it feels like Liverpool should be more interested in acquiring Guehi's services this summer, rather than waiting until the end of the year. That is, especially since the Englishman has been dubbed exceptional by Gareth Southgate due to the performances he put in during Euro 2024. Liverpool target Alexander Isak makes decision as Newcastle starts transfer talks. Newcastle striker Alexander Isak has decided against attending the Professional Footballers Association's PFA award ceremony on Tuesday. Despite being nominated, Alexander Isak made a decision. Newcastle's forward, Alexander Isak, has decided to give the Professional Footballers Association's PFA awards gala a miss, despite being in contention for a top honor. The Swedish international, who has been nominated for the Players' Player of the Year award, is rumored to be staying away amid speculation about his future. Isak has allegedly informed Newcastle that he has played his last Premier League game for the club, even though the Magpies have rejected an offer from Liverpool. A fresh bid from Liverpool could be on the cards before the transfer deadline, but Eddie Howe's club is keen to secure 2 more forwards before sanctioning any departure. On Tuesday, it emerged that Newcastle has opened talks with Wolves over a deal for Jørgen Strand Larsen, who could potentially replace Isak in the starting 1-1. Isak is one of 6 contenders for the Players' Player of the Year award, alongside Bruno Fernandes, Alexis Mac Allister, Cole Palmer, Declan Rice, and Mohamed Salah. However, as per BBC Sport, Isak had not confirmed his presence at the award ceremony barely 24 hours prior to its scheduled start time on Tuesday. Salah is widely expected to win the award after firing Liverpool to the Premier League title. Last year, the coveted award was won by Phil Foden at the ceremony held in Manchester. The England international, who had just helped Manchester City clinch the league title with a career-best 19 goals, accepted his award in person. Isak is up for the top award. The BBC's report suggests that previous winners and nominees have often left it late to confirm their attendance. However, the broadcaster also quotes unnamed sources, suggesting that Isak does not plan to attend. Isak's performances last term left him highly sought after during the early stages of the summer transfer window. The striker concluded the season with 23 league goals and 27 across all competitions, both personal records helping Newcastle secure Champions League qualification. Liverpool's opening offer was turned down by Newcastle. The forward remains intent on departing, however, and was omitted from manager Howe's matchday squad for the Premier League curtain raiser against Aston Villa. I hope it's resolved quickly because it's news around us all the time, Howe told TNT Sports following the scoreless stalemate at Villa Park. Players have managed to shut that out and perform. We have to continue to do that. We have to cope without the narrative against us. Newcastle's next game happens to be against Liverpool at St. James's Park. The Reds didn't face significant difficulties finding the net in their opener, with new signing Hugo Ekitike scoring in a 4-2 triumph over Bournemouth. Ekitike was among the forwards on Newcastle's radar before his switch to Anfield, but the club has alternative targets as it prepares for Isak's potential departure. Brentford's Yohan Wissa and Paris Saint-Germain's Gonçalo Ramos are both under consideration, with either capable of arriving on Tyneside before the transfer window closes on September 1st. Alexander Isak's private Liverpool transfer feelings emerge amid exact valuation gap. Latest Liverpool transfer news as Alexander Isak reportedly remains set on an Anfield move, while a gap in evaluation for Marc Guehi emerges. Alexander Isak could still arrive at Anfield before the end of the window. The focus has turned to next Monday for Liverpool when they travel to Newcastle United. The ongoing uncertainty surrounding Alexander Isak and the Reds' interest will be the backdrop to the showdown as he looks set to continue his spell in the cold after being dropped at St. James's Park. Arne Slot's side have already had one bid rejected for the Sweden international after the Magpies robustly turned down the £110 million offer. Liverpool got off to a winning start against Bournemouth on the opening day, but their attacking options are in need of reinforcements, with the responsibility immediately heaped on new arrival Hugo Ekitike. The Frenchman has 2 goals in as many competitive matches for the Reds, but with Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez among those to leave the club this summer, the Dutchman faces a growing desire to add reinforcements in attacking areas. But the end to Isak's saga appears not in sight. Alexander Isak makes Liverpool transfer feelings clear. Journalist Fabrizio Romano has reiterated his claim that Isak has made it clear that he only wants to join Liverpool. Interestingly, he mentions how the two clubs are up against each other next, and the suggestion that they may re-enter negotiations after the showdown at St. James's Park. Isak has been banished from Howe's side while the uncertainty clouds the conversation. Romano said, "The reason is that Alexander Isak only wants to play for Liverpool. Alexander Isak only wants to go to Liverpool. Alexander Isak, every single time Newcastle, their board, management, or Eddie Howe approached him in recent weeks over a new contract, the answer from the player was, 'I'm not going to sign a new contract. I'm not interested in a new deal.' Even when Isak offered the opportunity to include a release clause so he could leave in 2026, the clear answer was always the same. Alexander Isak doesn't want to change his position, only Liverpool. Now we expect the two clubs to recover negotiations, but as always, Newcastle have to find a new striker. They're looking for a new number 9. A factor in this story is that Alexander Isak is in the middle of the two clubs. The next game is Newcastle versus Liverpool. This is also part of the story and why the two clubs are on standby. Then these clubs will try again for Alexander. Gaps separating Liverpool and Palace over Marc Guehi transfer. According to The Independent's Miguel Delaney in his newsletter, Liverpool and Crystal Palace remain £10 million apart in the valuation to sign Marc Guehi. The two clubs have been in talks over the defender with the Premier League champions, keen on strengthening the heart of their defense. Guehi poses as an opportunistic signing for the Reds. As he enters the final year of his contract and aged just 25, he has over 100 appearances in England's top flight. The journalist claims that the transfer chiefs at Anfield are not budging over their offer of £35 million, with the FA Cup holders said to be insistent on a £45 million deal.